taping together your paper pattern, cut out your fabric using either scissors or a rotary cutter on a cutting mat. Luckily, this hat is very easy to put together. Simply fold in half, like such, pin together, with right sides facing together of course, and either serge the inside seam together, or you can sew it on your sewing machine. You could even hand sew it if you prefer. I chose to finish my inside seam with an overlock stitch. Cut off any loose threads, and boom! That's pretty much it for the hat part, but if you want to get it extra pointy at the end, use a point turner or a smooth chopstick to get that point nice and pushed out. You also have the option of hemming the bottom of the hat. This is entirely up to you if you think it's going to fray or you just want it to look nice, or give it more stability. So I'm going to repeat this process with the large hat as well. It is the exact same as the small hat. Once you've finished your hat, measure out the folded length and multiply it by 2. And go ahead and add 3 inches just to be safe. Stretch velvet and the thickness of fur trim can be a little bit misleading when it comes to measuring, so it pays to have a little extra. Remember when cutting your fur to cut only the backing of the material and not all the way through the fur, or else you'll get a very choppy looking cut. I'm going to pin the right side of the fur to the right side of the fabric. You can either hand sew them together on the edge or machine stitch. For the sake of this tutorial and speed, I'm going to go ahead and do a machine stitch. Once we flip it, you'll notice that it's kind of a very clean line, which doesn't look so natural, so you can use a dull upholstery needle to pull out some of those hairs or fibers that got caught in the seam to give it a more rugged and natural look. Next, I'm going to machine stitch the ends of the fur trim closed. And as you can see, I have a little bit of extra fur left over from what I had calculated before, so I'm just going to trim some of that off. Next, I'm going to fold the trim in half. I'm also going to give it a little bit extra length on the outside, so I'm not going to perfectly match up the inside edges because I want it to be a little bit wider. However, if you want a thinner band, you can make them match up if you want. In order to keep this closed, you can either glue or hand sew the trim to itself so that the fold will be closed. I'm just going to give this a really quick basted stitch. You can do a whip stitch or any other manner of hand sewing, such as a slip stitch. Once I get to the end, where the seam meets of the fur trim, I'm going to pull that out again with my dull upholstery needle, very carefully so I don't pull out any threads. If you have extra fur on the inside that didn't brush out with your needles, you can trim those now. Last but not least, you can pick a special pom for the tip of your hat, or you can do anything else, such as an ornament or even a bell. You can opt to hot glue these on or use another type of glue. I'm just going to go ahead and hand sew it. I'm just doing a simple tack and making sure I pass the needle all the way through the pom multiple times so that I catch enough material to keep it permanently affixed to the tip of my hat. If you would like to affix it to your hair or a wig with more stability, you can hand sew or glue ribbons to the inside and then use alligator clips to catch the hair so that your hat will always stay on no matter what. You can also use loose batting to give the bottom of the hat a more full and cartoony look. If you would like to affix your smaller hat to a headband, I like to do what's called a chain stitch. There are many tutorials available for chain stitches, but in short, you're basically just making literally a chain of knots using hand-sewn thread. I doubled up my thread to give it some extra thickness. I prefer to do a chain stitch instead of using a large thread such as embroidery floss because it makes a much neater, smaller knot at the base of the fabric as opposed to a larger, thicker knot that is more likely to come undone as well. So I'm just going to tie a couple of knots, making sure to not let the needle pass through. Again, there are many tutorials on YouTube that can explain it better than I can, but you can observe the pattern here. I'm just pulling the thread through without letting go of the needle, and that will start to build up some knots. And just so you know, this is happening in real time. This is not sped up. So if you think, wow, that's going to take me a long time, trust me, it really doesn't. And it's definitely worth it. Once you have built a chain of these, to finish, you will simply pass the needle through the knot. This step will lock in place the chain of stitches that you have created. Make sure to do this and not simply drop the needle, or else your entire chain of knots will come unraveled. To finish the chain stitch, grab a couple of fibers from the backing of the fur trim with your needle and tie a couple of knots off to complete the stitch. Chain stitches are useful in many different applications, but for this hat, it is especially useful as the chain stitch is nearly invisible when hidden within the fur. Once your chain stitches are complete, slide onto a thin headband of your choice. The headband can be worn on your own head, or if you're wearing a wig, you can put it through the wefts. With the headband, you can shake your head as much as you want and your little hat won't fall off. Same for using the hair clips on the larger hat. Other than adding any other embellishments that you may want, that's all I have for the hat tutorial. Like I said, it's a pretty simple one, so if you'd like to make your own, be sure to visit my online shop or Etsy to download the pattern. That's all I have for now. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.